Welcome to A Fortnight on the Isle. I am your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and today, well, the last fortnight has been a pretty packed one, all things considered, a surprisingly packed one, despite there being a good bit of a relaxation and not doing a whole lot with in some regards anyway, over the last couple weeks. The first week, I would say, was indeed just like I planned in the last one of these update videos, was spent basically getting done a heck of a lot of extra video work for this month, for March, to finish basically everything that I had going on this month done ahead of time. I was able to get through a lot of that, and it worked out pretty well. And the second week was spent doing a little bit more relaxing, all things considered. I did a bit of gaming. I also did a little bit of auxiliary work on some other stuff that I haven't had a chance or haven't had time to work on, that I kind of like accidentally got in the process of doing, things like updating my Goodreads and other similar stuff of that sort. Now that we're halfway through March, I'm excited to continue doing hopefully mostly nothing for the next couple of weeks. Don't get me wrong, there are still going to be things that I need to do, and this video is kind of testament to the fact that, you know, I'm not completely smooth sailing. Basically, as soon as I am done recording this video, like minutes later, I'm going to be starting the live stream for the 14th of March, so the day before this video comes out, and then I'm going to be editing this right after the stream is done. So, like, today is busy, for example, but I am aiming for a little bit more relaxation this month. But though I felt like I've been doing a good bit of slacking in some regards the last couple of weeks, my reading has gone pretty decently well this fortnight. So let's go ahead and get into the bi-weekly reading. And start off with the fact that I did, in fact, start reading Towers of Midnight, the penultimate book of the Wheel of Time. I can't remember if I even mentioned this in the last diary. I'm pretty sure I didn't, because I hadn't started it yet. I had said that I was planning to read it, that it was a to-be-read type of thing, but I hadn't started it yet. Well, at this point, I'm not too far away from 2/3 of the way through now. I actually just read 100 pages of this beast this morning. Like, I'm recording this minutes after finishing my reading, and then I'm going to be live streaming probably minutes after this video is done recording. So I've been really enjoying myself. There are some major question marks with regard to timeline, particularly Perrin's, that are like just inducing a lot of whiplash, and I can't help but feel like there are some of those things in the book that could have been handled and structured a little bit differently, even including some of these scenes maybe could have actually been in the Gathering Storm instead, to make less whiplash in this book. But that's all stuff that we can talk about a little bit more fully when I finish reading the book, when I fully review it, and all of that kind of stuff. Some of the other reading that I did get done this fortnight, however, I did read all of Perfume by Patrick Zuskind, and we have another third book that is guaranteed to be in my book of the year list this year. I guess all things considered, that's like 4 between Perfume, Gathering Storm, Hardboiled Wonderland, and Three Musketeers. I would be surprised if any of these 4 didn't end up in my top 10 books of the year. It's just been nothing but banger after banger after banger so far in 2026. It's been awesome. Perfume was incredible. If you are somebody who appreciates prose, and particularly prose that works thematically with what the book is doing, just as a general conceptual underpinning to everything, you should absolutely be checking out Perfume. It is incredible, and I thought that the thematic depth of it was actually quite impressive. As far as what I'm going to be reading the next couple weeks, the main thing is that I'm going to be finishing Towers of Midnight. What I have on the docket after that for the remainder of the month, I'm kind of still trying to determine at this point. I think I know what I'm going to do, but it's probably going to be on the short story side of things. I think I am going to finally get around to reading Percy Jackson's Greek Gods next week, once I'm finished with Towers of Midnight. Not 100% sure if that's what I'm going to do, but probably is. Sorry, I don't have it to hold up. I forgot to grab it, and it's behind the green screen, and I don't have time to deal with doing that. So that's something that I'll probably end up doing. But some other miscellaneous reading that I thought I would just go ahead and note is that over the last few weeks at this point, I would say at the time of this video's release, it's been close to 3 weeks now, I have actually started going over some more theological reading as of recent, and finally got back onto like reading the Bible, for example, like pretty close to halfway through Genesis at this point. But not only have I been reading that, I've also been reading some other theology-based stuff to go along with it, and that includes stuff that is outside the typical biblical canon. That includes stuff like in the Catholic canon and even some other Deuterocanon from some other religions. For example, over the last couple weeks, from the Apocrypha, I read First Enoch, for example. And that was actually really, really great. I recommend First Enoch a lot. It was a really intriguing read. And the reason why I did read First Enoch was because part of reading Genesis, I was also reading a good bit of Pearl of the Great Price, which is an LDS-specific book, granted. But I was reading that in accordance with Genesis because a couple books of Pearl of Great Price are kind of reframings of parts of the Genesis story, for example, and also bring up Enoch as a character a lot more than Genesis does, hence why I read Enoch. So like, I'm not relegating myself to any specific canon and just kind of reading all over the place, and that's been really enjoyable. As far as what's to be read there, I'm going to be finishing Genesis over the next couple weeks, basically leading up to Easter, and that's my plan there. But that is all that I have to say about the reading. Let's move on to the bi-weekly gaming. I did do a fairly decent portion of gaming the last couple of weeks. Like I said, this last week in particular has a lot of time has been spent relaxing in this way. I did play some more BioShock 2 and actually did the hard mode run that last time I said I may or may not be considering doing. I went ahead and pulled the trigger on doing that, and interestingly enough, the hard mode run was actually a little bit more interesting from a gameplay perspective than the normal mode run was, and that's because doing it on normal, I was doing it for a Let's Play, so I was inherently paying slightly less attention to some things than I otherwise normally would, and so I managed to enjoy playing that on hard mode a lot. Granted, I did do the hard mode run doing the no Vita chamber trophy at the same time as that, so that meant that there were some portions of it that were a little bit more tedious than it otherwise would have been because of having to reload saves rather than, you know, just having the automatic in-universe revive system at my command. But I managed to get the platinum trophy with the hard mode run. I managed to get all of the remaining trophies there, where I thought that I would have to do some miscellaneous stuff in like an easy mode to get a couple remaining trophies. But nope, I only had to do the 2 playthroughs, quickly got through all of that, and it was honestly a great time. I enjoyed the game as a game a lot more this second time around. Another thing of note is the live stream that I've been mentioning that I'm probably going to be doing right after recording this video. Is I have been streaming Ghost of Yotei. I've talked about this in the last couple of updates. At the point of this recording, I've played, I think, 37 hours or so of it is what PlayStation tells me that I've played, and that doesn't count today's stream where I plan to do probably another 4 to 5 hours of it. I am at this point apparently about 50% of the way through the campaign. I'm hoping to do basically only campaign stuff today and hope to get a pretty good chunk through that, because over the next couple of weeks there's going to be something happening over the weekends that may or may not allow me to stream just from a personal desire reasons, so we'll see how far I get through today, but the goal is to be finished with the main part of Ghost of Yotei with the story basically by the end of the month. We'll see what I can do with streams. As far as that's a lie. I have also started playing God of War Sons of Sparta. Finally, I did get a handful of hours of that played, and it's been pretty fun. There was one story objective that I've spent a lot more time on than I ultimately would have liked to be at this point, because I got lost and didn't realize that there was one specific way that you had to get through to a certain objective, and that wasted a couple of my hours, but otherwise I've been having a really good time with that for the most part. There have been a couple soft lock issues with regard to certain dialogue things not fully ending for me to be able to do stuff, so I've been borderline soft locked a couple times, which has not been fantastic, but outside of those couple of issues, I am actually really enjoying the game and I've been really invested with it from a story and lore based perspective, so that's been really enjoyable. And I basically just plan to finish that game and Ghost of Yotei this fortnight. So those are the plans there. For the bi-weekly cinema, I did not watch anything over the last couple weeks like I kind of planned to, but that's because I spend all my time gaming instead. But this fortnight, I do have a couple movies that I do plan to watch. One of those is that I hope to see Project Hail Mary in the theaters this weekend. I believe that's this weekend when that actually comes out, so I'm going to be going to watch that. In fact, I'm going to be making a review of that, hence why I need to go see that in theaters opening weekend. And then I also have another video coming out in a handful of weeks for Easter time that I plan to review The Passion of the Christ for, because I've actually never seen that movie and I'm genuinely curious to see how that goes. So I'm going to go ahead and watch that this fortnight for Easter and make a video about it. So those are my main priorities there. I have some other viewing related priorities, but we'll talk about that in this Fortnite section later, because it's not really relevant to film specifically. As for the upcoming releases, all of the videos that I have coming out over this fortnight, this week, 6 videos, next week, 7 videos, or rather a couple of those are live streams, but you know, we'll see what happens, but that's what I have basically planned. Tomorrow on the 16th on the second channel, I plan to do a discography deep dive video, so a discography ranking for the band Before I Turn, because their most recent album came out recently, and in reviewing that and talking about that in the book, I decided I wanted to listen through their entire discography again for the first time in a few years and rank it, and I did so, and that ranking actually came out a little bit differently than I thought it would going in, so I'm surprised by my own ranking, but that comes out tomorrow, and I had a really enjoyable time doing that. On Tuesday the 17th, on the main channel will be my review of Sphere by Michael Crichton. That's probably one of my rougher reviews, but it's good enough, I promise. Wednesday the 18th on the second channel will be a very brief review, and this time it is actually a brief review of Power Wash Simulator. I'm just going to be briefly talking about that and kind of closing my experience playing that game over the last handful of years, actually, because I did recently finally go through and 100% everything in the game outside of challenges, and I wanted to talk about it very briefly. The video is only like 7 or 8 minutes, so it is actually brief this time. Thursday the 19th will be the third diary on Towers of Midnight, third one of those Wheel of Time diary episodes for the month, so nothing new there. Kind of the same thing on Friday will be the 7th episode of the Alan Wake Let's Play. That'll be for the first DLC episode of the game, so very nearly coming to the conclusion of the game now. Finally, it's been running for a little while, but it's been enjoyable nonetheless. And then Saturday, I plan to stream Ghosts of Yote, although there's a pretty strong chance that I don't end up doing that Saturday because of needing to make a Project Hail Mary related video, which we'll talk about in more detail here in just 2 seconds, and because of basketball stuff happening this weekend, but we'll talk about that all later. Next week, starting on Sunday the 22nd on the main channel, will be a book review for Cujo by Stephen King. On next Monday the 23rd will be on the second channel my review for Project Hail Mary that I've been hinting at. I plan to go watch that this Thursday or Friday, and then to actually obviously make the video to come out on Monday, so that's going to be a pretty quick turnaround on that, and that video is also going to be posted to the main channel, or rather it's going to be a collaboration with the main channel, so that, you know, people who are interested in seeing how the movie compares to the book can see that in either spot. Next Tuesday the 24th on the main channel will be a follow-up to the Cujo review, where I'll be doing a tier list of I think 9 more books by Stephen King, covering some of his early career output. That tier list was actually pretty enjoyable to put together. It's going to be interesting to see how some people react to some of those placements, but I'm pretty happy with how it's turning out so far, even though I know I'm going to have to adjust my actual tiers by the time I get to the next episode of that, even though it's going to be a couple years before that. But next Wednesday on the 25th on the second channel will be episode 4 of the Game Grind, where I'll be actually doing that commentary track for getting the hardcore, or rather hard to the core trophy for Little Nightmares, that speed run and no death trophy. I go ahead and do a commentary run, and I'm actually going to be posting that next week. I did a video talking about my experience with it a handful of weeks back, and I'm going to actually be doing the commentary with tips and tricks on how to achieve that next week. On Thursday the 26th will be the fourth and final diary for Towers of Midnight, covering how I feel about the end of the book, which obviously is yet to be determined at the time of this recording, but that will be coming out next Thursday. Next Friday will be episode 8 of the Alan Wake Let's Play. That'll be the second DLC episode and finishing up Alan Wake for the channel. So that is pretty exciting. And then the 28th, that Saturday, should also theoretically be another Ghost of Yotei live stream, although those live streams may be a little bit variable on when they actually happen. It might be that I switch them around with some other stuff on other days, like some of the Let's Play stuff. It might be I switch some of those days around depending on what's going on with March Madness, because this fortnight I do plan to spend no small amount of time basically just watching a bunch of basketball. It's become a tradition for me the last few years to just watch way too much March Madness, like basically all of it on all of the days that it happens, and that starts this weekend, so that means that there's going to be a handful of days where I'm going to be basically entirely occupied by that. There's also the fact that I've been following the NBA a little bit more closely this season than I have basically at any point in the past. I've been following the Raptors and the Heat pretty closely since mid-January. And speaking about the Heat, how about Bam Adebayo getting 83 points on last Tuesday's game? That was an incredible game to watch. Really enjoyed that. But between those two teams that I've been watching basically every game for as far as I've been able to, and March Madness happening the next couple of weekends, which I always watch, I'm going to be pretty busy with that. And there's also the fact that next Monday, the day that the Project Hail Mary review comes out, I'm actually going to be going to the city with my dad to watch the Raptors play against the Jazz at our home game. So I'm going to be having fun with that next week as well. So basically, this fortnight is a heck of a lot of basketball and not a whole lot else for the most part. So that's going to kind of affect the way that some of the Ghost of Yotei live streams go, based off of, how tuned into the March Madness stuff I am, when some of those games are actually going, some of the games that I care more about necessarily, and of course, the time that I normally stream, all that kind of stuff. There's going to be some questions. Might be a chance that I actually decide not to stream at all one of these weekends solely because of that. So, it's a big question mark, but in either case, that's what I've got going on. I did also mention at the beginning of this video, well, real quickly before I go and finish off the update here, I mentioned working on some of my Goodreads and updating some stuff over there. And yeah, I believe I mentioned, it's been upwards of 6 months ago at this point. It's been since I was talking about I was getting some of my personal library database built and some of that stuff taken care of. Although I haven't gotten a full spreadsheet built for all of the books that I own, I have finally been working on getting Goodreads updated with that regard. I have different tags for all of the different authors of books that I own, and been getting all of the read books, all of the books that I've read and logged in Goodreads as read, updated with regard to all of that stuff. And now I'm probably going to spend a lot of time over this fortnight while basketball stuff is going on, since I won't have a whole lot else that I'll be doing during those hours. I'll probably be spending no small amount of time during basketball stuff just adding all of the books that I own to all of those shelves and to my TBR on Goodreads, because I haven't actually updated any of that in 3 years. So that's catching up on stuff that has been on the back burner for way too long. So that's something that I'm also pretty excited about. It feels good to be back working on things for myself that aren't videos for a little bit, actually. The fact that I haven't been working specifically on videos for up until today, obviously, in over a week is actually really relaxing. It's really nice to be able to have a little bit of that freedom again, even though I'm going to be incorporating that a little bit more into my life the next couple weeks, preparing for April and May. But in either case, that's what I've got planned for this fortnight. It's just a lot of basketball, continuing to update Goodreads. So yeah, this Fortnight on the Isle actually managed to be relatively short for once. And by relatively short, I mean it's not a half hour long. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it there, now that the recording is barely at 20 minutes, and going to say goodbye. Thank you for watching this video. I am going to be, ending this recording and then immediately jumping into getting ready for a live stream over on the second channel. So I'm going to be doing that here very shortly, and then I will be editing this video this evening so that it can actually come out on time immediately after that. So yeah, busy day today, but I appreciate you guys for watching. If you did, let me know what you've got going on the last couple weeks, these next couple of weeks, both in reading or whatever else other media you've been experiencing. I would sure love to hear about it. Thank you one final time for watching. For now, I've been your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.